another episode of ENN, the Exiles Network News. Today, I'm joined by my partner in crime. It's Christian.
What's up, man? I'm so happy to be here, especially after the week I've had. Time to talk movies.
Good, let's do it. So it's just you and me. It's going to be a buddy cop comedy. Are you ready for it?
Oh, I'm ready.
All right, good cop, bad cop. All right, so our itinerary for the day. We're going to talk about Martin Scorsese's comments on the MCU. He had some very kind words to say, some encouraging words about Marvel movies.
That's one way to put it.
Yeah. We're going to talk about Joker's box office. Joker has been a smash hit. Last week we had some predictions, and we're going to, get back to see what actually happened. We're going to talk about The Matrix 4 and The Matrix 0. We're going to talk about He-Man and Sonny. What is Sonny trying to do with the Masters of the Universe franchise? And then in our Coming Soon section, we're going to talk about a new Bond poster, 1917, the movie featurette, and Pixar's new animated movie, Onward. So let's get right into it. Hey, Christian.
Yes, sir.
Martin Scorsese had some interesting things to say about the MCU. Now, basically, Martin Scorsese is someone that I call, one of the old gods when it comes to making movies. People like him, people like Francis Coppola, people like Steven Spielberg, heavy hitters, real heavy hitters. So whenever he says anything about film, people pay close attention. All right. So let me read what he has said about Marvel movies. And if I can just pull up the quote, he said, "This is not cinema." He says, "The closest thing that I can compare these two, as well as they're made, with actors doing the best they can under the circumstances, is theme parks." That's all he said, and it caused a firestorm of reaction. What do you think about what Martin Scorsese says about Marvel movies? Being a big Marvel fan, the Marvel on the podcast.
Yeah, being a fan of the MCU. I'll be upfront. I'm torn on this, and there's a couple of reasons. I think if there's anybody who's earned the right to comment and to criticize movies, it's Martin. I adore this man. I've seen almost every single one of his movies. I love them all. He has seen the ups and downs of the movie industry, and I'm sure that old school movie guys have to feel the same way that he does, right? He's probably wondering, where does cinema even go from here at this point? And his definition, my interpretation of what he was saying, is his definition of cinema is really that human condition, expressing human emotions and things like that, and just what makes us who we are, challenging human beings, things like that. And from that respect, while I do believe that some of the MCU movies and the Marvel movies really hit you right in the feels, and they have a lot of heart, he's not 100% wrong. These movies can be formulaic. They can play it very safe. They provide kind of popcorn entertainment. So from that respect, he's not wrong. And they gobble up all the oxygen in the room, don't they? They suck it all up.
Absolutely.
So he's not wrong from that respect. And this, as you said, he's an old god, man. This is one of the guys that has made some classics when it comes to movies. Now, the flip side, and this is where some of the exiles might exile me, he sounds a little bit like a cranky old man. He really does. And it sparks an argument, I think, about what is cinema, and is Martin the gatekeeper for what cinema is? So look, Marvel employs a lot of people and a ton of talent. And so you're going to tell me that all those people that made that movie and are directing those movies and everything like that, they're not working in cinema? So what the definition of cinema even is, that's up to Martin Scorsese. I think another thing is, too, one of his comments, they push us to think about, are these the only movies that are making money? Are these the only movies, as we just said a minute ago, they're sucking all the oxygen out of the room? Marvel only makes about 3 movies a year, man. That's it. So if he had decided to take a shot, I think, at franchises altogether, and in this case, Disney owns a lot of the franchises. So, but it's every studio. I think if you want to take a shot at all of the franchises then the studios are making us basically watch all these franchises, then I think I'd agree with him a little bit more, because a lot of these artsy movies and movies like I'm looking forward to, like Ford versus Ferrari, are getting shoved to the side. Mm-hmm. And maybe partially the last thing I'll mention, and I know you have something to say about this, is maybe we are partially to blame as consumers, because, you know, a family of 5, they got 3 kids, they can only go watch a movie once every 2 months, and they can take their kids out to dinner and stuff like that. They're not watching Ford versus Ferrari. They're watching the next big franchise movie. That's what they're watching. Mm-hmm. So, and are you telling them that they're not taking their kids to see cinema? They're just taking them to see junk? I don't know if that's the case, man. I'm very conflicted about this. And part of it is absolutely because I love this man, but he gave me. Did you ever see that picture of the old man in The Simpsons, and it says like it's old man shaking his fist at a cloud?
Yeah,
that's kind of how Martin came off to me. So it's just like, you know, and he's just like yelling at the cloud. I love you, Martin, I really do, but I don't know. He came across that way as a little bit. So I want to hear what you have to say, though.
All right, I'm gonna play bad cop. You know, mm-hmm. I was gonna straddle the fence. And then you went and you took my spot. So I'm gonna go full. Bring it on. I'm gonna go full villain in this one. I have to agree with Marty. I really have to. Mm-hmm. Now, Marty said 2 things that we need to sort of really focus on. One, he said that they're not cinema, and we have to sort of try to extrapolate what he means by cinema, because if you take the term literally, it just means obviously movies that play in cinemas. And so obviously that's not what he means. What he's talking about is sort of a deeper understanding, a deeper exploration of humans and emotions and feelings and themes. And this is a criticism I've always had about the MCU. About many of their movies. Now, to be sincere, one place I would disagree with Marty is that not all of their films can be held accountable to this indictment. For example, The Winter Soldier is a movie that has something very strong, something very political to say. And it, you know, carries its theme strongly throughout the film without faltering, without letting up. Black Panther has something really political to say, something really deep to say, something, you know, larger than life to say. And although it falters a bit and kind of, in my opinion, pulls back on the reins just a little bit, I think it succeeds to a larger extent. So we do have some of those films in the MCU, but the vast majority of MCU films and what we've come to know as the generic, quote unquote, Marvel movie, they tend to be shallow. They tend to be safe. They tend to be quite generic. Now, that's a very, very harsh thing to say. It's something that I've always said, and I know it's kind of like being a bully when, you know, now I have Martin Scorsese in my corner now saying this. So
I have a movie god in my pockets, and now I can say this stuff.
Exactly, now I can say this. But this is something I've always said, because Zack Snyder tried to make superhero movies that had something serious to say about the human condition, and said it with a lot of depth and said it with a lot of commitment. And the criticism that was levied against him was his movies weren't like the Marvel movies, that they weren't fun, they weren't funny enough, they didn't have enough jokes in them, they were too dark. So when people who are Marvel fans and, you know, the critics and bloggers who talk about these movies, when they actually utter those kind of words and say that this is what, you know, Marvel movies are, and this is what superhero movies are, then Martin Scorsese is not wrong. Because the type of movies that he is talking about and what he's saying that quote unquote cinema are movies that don't just skirt the themes. It's not just a shallow presentation of themes. They actually really go in deep and go as deep and as raw, as unbridled and unadulterated as they can. You don't have situations where, you know, in Marvel movies, how many times have we seen this? Someone is about to go into something quite deep and something quite emotional, and they quickly drop a joke and cut it off to like lighten the tension. They don't let those emotions sink in. They don't let the audience really come to grips with what is going on and really reflect on some of these very difficult emotions or difficult questions. And so that's one of the problems I've always had with the Marvel movies. And I think that that's one of the things that he's addressing. But he also said that these movies are very well made, which they are. They're excellently made. And they really excite people, and they're fun and they're entertaining. That's why he called them theme park rides. You know, you can take the family for a nice day at the movies and you're going to laugh and it's going to be exciting, but there is, a lack of depth there. And so I actually think that he's right. Don't kill the messenger. I'm just delivering the message. If you want to hate on someone, please direct all hate to Martin Scorsese. He can't take it. I can't. Little old me.
I think Martin can take it just fine. I really do.
I'll be okay. But the interesting thing about it is that he did get a lot of responses. We heard from people like Sam Jackson,
yes,
from Robert Downey Jr. We heard from James Gunn. Everybody, pitched in, as we are, about the whole matter. So Sam Jackson, his quote was about, in my best, Sam Jackson voice, everybody's got an opinion. So, I mean, it's okay. It ain't going to stop nobody from making movies. So I think that, Sam Jackson is someone, I don't take him too seriously when it comes to his opinion, like, to be sincere. Like, there's an interview I read where he said that the reason why he makes so many movies is because his wife has expensive tastes.
Yeah, I remember hearing that.
Yeah.
I remember hearing that too.
So I am not going to take advice on sort of the deeper, more nuanced facets of film from Sam Jackson, who basically is just there for a paycheck. Sorry. I know he's a great actor and he's done a lot, and his films I think he's been in the highest grossing, like if you tally up the revenue of all the films he's been in, he's like the highest grossing actor of all time.
Ridiculous amount of movies.
It's ridiculous. He basically does anything. If you have a paycheck, he's going to be there.
Snakes on a plane, bro. Snakes on a plane.
I don't think he reads scripts anymore. He just reads checks. That's it. He just reads checks. That's it. So he's not really someone I'm going to listen to. Robert Downey Jr., he was on the Howard Stern show, and he was quite political about it. He was questioning what Scorsese meant by cinema, questioning whether it was literal or whether it was sort of a metaphor, and he said, I appreciate his opinion because I think it's like anything. We all need the different perspectives so we can come to a center and move on. And I think that was a very political way to go about it. I think it's quite interesting that Robert Downey Jr. in that same interview, he let it be known that he refused to be nominated or to be tendered for nomination for an Oscar for the. And sorry again to be bad cop, I don't think he deserves to be nominated for an Oscar, because a lot of people are basing it on, he's done this for 10 years. And,
that's not the right base.
It means it's not a popularity contest. It's not a lifetime achievement award either, although sometimes, to be sincere, it is. But you do have to earn it. And one thing I've noticed about Oscar nominated performances is that you have to act differently than you normally do. It has to be sort of a transformative role. That's why you see people who they either lose weight or they gain a lot of weight or they act or they become someone completely different.
Christian Bale, man. Christian
Bale, exactly.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Or like Daniel Day-Lewis, who would go method and he would limp for months, that sort of thing, to imitate, someone who has a limp, that sort of thing. So I think with Iron Man, to be sincere, a lot of the Iron Man character is Robert Downey Jr. I know he's gotten a bit older and in his normal life he's kind of slowed down, but when he first started the role, it was just Robert Downey Jr. just being himself. If you see his audition, it was just so natural for him. And, that's the way he talks in interviews. That's the way he talks, when he's on stage presenting things. So although he's a great actor, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he's not good. Actually, the job that he did in this film, in Endgame, and that he's done over the years, has actually been one of the better acting performances in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But I don't think it's Oscar worthy.
No, you know what? I don't think what you're saying is really a bad cop, though. I think that's truth. You know, I can MCU stand with the best of them, but to turn around and think that he gave an Oscar-worthy performance with a good performance, but still you're going to say that it was Oscar-worthy? I don't believe that at all. I think if Endgame wins Oscars, it should be for, you know, like cinematography or special effects and stuff.
Or technical stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it was. Look, I love the storyline, but dude, they were making fun of Back to the Future in the middle of the story. I mean, it was like the middle part of the movie was fan service. I had no problem with the fan service, but that's what it was. And you're right, by the way. The Academy can absolutely be political. I remember, and I don't want to go too far on a tangent because we want to talk about James Gunn.
Fine. Go ahead.
But I remember when Saving Private Ryan lost the Oscar to Shakespeare in Love. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. It's Saving Private. Dude, that movie was incredible.
Epic.
It was epic. The entire – I went to go see that with my grandfather, who arrived on D-Day +3. Wow. And he looked at me and was like, this was great. But he was like, you should have been there. You know, and it kind of scared me with that. But I remember eating at a diner with him and everything afterwards, and he told me all these stories, and it made him open up. And Shakespeare in Love won the Oscar. You got to be kidding me. So, yeah, the Oscars can absolutely be political, and I'm glad that he put it out there and was like, dude, no. Let's put the kibosh on that now. Yeah, it should be. That's the way it should be, by the way. He should not be even considered. And the fact that if he's not considered for it, that's not a knock on Robert Downey Jr. It's not. But I could see the Marvel fans going crazy and be, it's not, though. It's not a knock on him. But I agree with you. I don't think you're being bad cop there. Before you move on to Gunn. Yeah. Yeah,
no. Why don't you talk about Gunn? So we had some other responses. James Gunn had quite a response. Why don't you talk about that? And also film Twitter's response in general. What do you think?
Yeah, I'll start that off. James Gunn, I believe his post said Martin Scorsese is one of my 5 favorite living filmmakers. I was outraged when people picketed The Last Temptation of Christ without having even seen the film. I'm saddened that he's now judging my films in the same way. I think this goes back to what you and I said before, that maybe people are taking certain things out of context. However, James Gunn really takes what he does very personally, and whether we like Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2 or not, their labors of love for the guy, there's a lot of James Gunn in those 2 movies. There's a lot of James Gunn in those movies. Sure. And the MCU can really, be whatever Kevin Feige wants, but there are certain movies and there's certain filmmakers like Gunn that have really been able to put their mark on these movies. So he took it to a whole new level, I felt. I didn't think he needed to go there. I really didn't. I don't think Martin Scorsese was attacking James Gunn. I don't. I understand, based on my comments that I just gave to you 5 minutes ago, I understand why somebody would feel that way and why they would be very personal towards something like the MCU, and he gave all of himself to it. But I just don't think he needed to go there. The only negative out of that I see moves into our next point, what you and I are going to talk about, is this fanboy / blogger response. And I think Gunn's comments and comments like his feed this tribalism that we're seeing online. And the MCU, my fellow MCU fans, any of you that are listening to me right now, guys, you're bad. You are bad. You need to pull it back. Not everything is an attack. It's not an attack. It's okay if Martin Scorsese doesn't like your movie. It's fine. It's okay if Lupe and the Exiles don't like your movie. That's fine. Guess what? You're going to be all right. The MCU is going to continue. That's what I always say about the MCU. I mean, the MCU is the most beloved franchise we have going on. It's okay for 1 or 2 people, or even 5, not to like them. Like, look at the box office, look at the reviews. Like, they are the most loved. If you want to, feel what it's like to like a franchise that's not like, try being a DC fan. Exactly.
Try that.
Try being a stan of the DC universe, and they get crapped on a consistent basis. I see it. I see it all the time, and I love the DC movies too. But you know what? I'm watching it. I watch it. I sometimes I get into you guys and your Twitter threads, and I see, and the attacks are just nonstop. So you are 100% correct with that. I think they're going to be fine. That's basically the bottom line. I don't think this tribalism is bad, and I think that we all agree. unless you're blind to it, I think we all agree that there is a section of the blogging population that is doing everything in their power to court Disney's favor. Mm-hmm. And they will court the MCU because guess what? That gives them access. Mm-hmm. That gives them power. And if they do the opposite, they're going to be denied all of that. But I don't think we have to take these comments so personally, guys. It's just Martin Scorsese said what he had to do. And comments like that, they feed this tribalism. They really do. And I really disagree with this tribalism. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, for me, I've seen, the response from Twitter and the response from bloggers. You've had two sides. So you have the side that's like, Martin Scorsese, like he's wrong. His movies are shit. Like so much revisionist history. Like, his movies.
Oh,
he's out
isn't that
of touch.
incredible?
His this, his that, and that. Like you make yourself look bad when you take that stance. Like it negates everything that you say. Like when you take.
You're going to tell me Martin Scorsese's movies are bad? Absolutely, I'm going to ignore what you say. Right.
Come on.
Right.
Then we have the other side who say, all right, Martin Scorsese he's great and his films are great and he has the right to say what he wants. But, all films have the right to exist, which is true. All right. Now I'm going to play good cop. To be sincere, even though I feel like Marvel movies aren't like the deepest and they're not quote unquote prestige or conveying human emotion and they're not quote unquote cinema, a lot of people love them. They make a lot of money and they have a huge fandom and people who are really emotionally invested in these characters.
Definitely.
And so they have the right to exist and they should exist. I would never want the MCU to not exist. Mm-hmm. However, my sort of question to these people who say, I've called it the all films lives matter argument, hashtag all films lives matter. Where were they when the DCE was getting trashed, when every Zack Snyder film was being dragged through the mud and there was cyberbullying and public beatings and lynchings and it was so crazy on Twitter? Where was this sentiment of, this X person might not like this movie, Y person might like this movie, and all films lives matter. So I don't really have any sympathy for their sort of public embarrassment by Martin Scorsese in this moment because I've seen the hypocrisy. I really wish that we could, quote unquote, all get along and all franchises could, be allowed to exist. You don't have to love them, but don't go out of your way to bash every film franchise. I think that's part of where Scorsese might be. You talked about, the old man, throwing his fist up from the Simpson, cartoon. But I think where he might be a little bit salty and a little bit bitter is because whether it's systemic, whether it's individual, some way, somehow, Marvel has sort of consumed a lot of the film industry, has squashed a lot of other film franchises, other big film franchises, and has also squashed, smaller, especially like the medium budget movies have basically been obliterated because of the rise of the franchise blockbuster, and Marvel is at the head of that, Cerberus, that behemoth. So, I think it's just, it's quite interesting. There's so many ways to look at it. Hey guys, if you're listening to this podcast, just, drop a comment in the comment section. Like, let us know what you think about what Martin Scorsese said, what you think about the MCU, what you think about the responses from, other celebrities and, from other fans. And, we'd like to, hear what you guys have to say. So now let's move on to the next topic. We're going to talk about Joker box office. Talking about a successful franchise. This one came out of left field. When Joker was first announced, almost nobody was on board. Like, it was pretty much a roundhouse rejection of the idea because it was going to be a Joker movie without Batman. It was going to be connected to nothing. But there were some people who were pretty excited because of the talent that was involved. Like Martin Scorsese was loosely involved. He was supposed to be producing. Joaquin Phoenix as the lead character, the Joker. People were apprehensive about Todd Phillips, but the rubber met the road. And opening weekend, it was projected to do between 75 and 85 million domestically, and it did 96 million. It was projected to do 155 million worldwide, and it did 248 million worldwide. Like, these are massive numbers. We're talking about doing better than, big flashy, DC characters and Marvel movies. It even did better than Justice League. Like, that's pretty incredible. And last weekend, we had a little bit of a wager on, trying to prognosticate and predict what it would do. I think I said it was going to do between 95 and 100. He said it was going to do about 95. And Manu said it was going to do between 90 and 95. So Manu was a loser. And I would just like to say I'm sorry that he lost, although I'm not very sorry. And I'm very proud of myself for being right, because, what can I do?
You should be proud of that, man.
I mean, you were also like pretty spot on the money, because you said 95 million and it ended up doing 96. So I guess
I'll take it.
Yeah, we were both right and Manu was wrong. So it is what it is.
As punishment, Manu has to watch First Class all day,
all day,
back to back, just watching First Class on loop. That's it.
Absolutely. So what do you think of these box office numbers for Joker?
I'm happy I was right. I know in our pod last week, I'll mention this very briefly, I know that there is concern that just because we got good box office numbers doesn't mean we're going to get another movie like this. Hope reigns supreme, man. So I am hoping that we get another movie, and it doesn't have to be Joker. It just has to, another movie like this. Logan was so good.
Yeah.
I want to see movies like that. I think, going back to your previous point, they can all exist. They really can. And I think there's places for all of them. We liked Joker, went to go see it. I have we could talk about it on another pod. I had some minor criticisms, but they do not ruin the movie at all. Those minor criticisms. And Joaquin Phoenix is just so good. So good in the movie. Visceral. Oh, it's just a very good flick all around. And I really, really liked it. So I think that the controversy surrounding it definitely helped it. Gave it a boost. And I think the word of mouth, man. I mean, I said my little thing on Twitter and said I thought it was, a couple little criticisms aside, I thought it was good, and bang, I got retweeted all over the place. And I think people were feeding on that, not just me, of course. I think overall people were feeding on that, and it helped it. And I just really do. My last thing I'll mention is I really hope that this is not just something Warner Brothers takes this and goes and then goes the other way.
Yeah.
Really hope that they say, look,
really
we can have another movie like this. I really do.
Yeah. For me, in terms of, Manu expressed a little bit of disappointment from Warner Brothers, because what Warner Brothers tends to do is they tend to not take the right message from, how their films perform. So, for example, Batman v Superman did okay box office wise, but it got a lot of bad press and they were very reactionary. And so instead of listening to, the fans, they listened to the bad press, and that ended up in Justice League, which, as we said, didn't even do as well as Joker did on its opening weekend. It's crazy. So if WB are to look at the vocal minority of people causing controversy and say, our next film that's like this, we're going to, go in a different direction, that would be the wrong message to take. I have faith that in this instance, it wouldn't be the case. I think that we're going to see more movies like this. I'm very excited about the prospects of this. And it's interesting because you can kind of trace the trajectory of these kind of movies and how they perform. So the first one to really hit big was Deadpool as an R-rated superhero movie. Now, Watchmen was the first sort of cult classic, successful R-rated superhero movie. Although, we had the Blade movies, to be sincere.
That's true. We did.
So it really actually goes far back. But Deadpool was the first one to be a bona fide, both critical hit, smash hit, fan favorite. So that signaled to the studios that, this is worth investing in. Then Logan came along, and Logan, took the prestige angle where it was R-rated, and it did the same thing. Box office hit, critical hit, fan favorite as well. And that, I think, opened the door for this Joker movie, which pushes everything even further. It's even more prestige and more auteur and indie than Logan. And Logan, trust me, I love Logan. So this is not a knock on Logan at all.
No, I gotcha. Yeah.
I think that Logan deserved to win, some awards like cinematography. Like I feel very strongly about Logan, but I think Joker takes it just a step even further, and obviously it's a little bit more nihilistic and violent and darker and unchained, and it's even more grounded and more of a character study. And so I think that we're going to see more of this, even if they take the wrong message. I always have faith that they'll make another movie like this, even if it's a mistake, even if it's just a fluke and it slips through the cracks. Because believe you me, I don't think that they really wanted to make Joker in terms of, they've been going through this period where they're making lighter movies and they're trying to be more family friendly. I think that they didn't expect this movie to be this successful. So I think
it's an interesting thought. It's an interesting thought.
I really do. I really do. And I think that no matter what, even if it's mistakenly, we're going to get another movie like this, and I'm looking forward to it. Let me ask you, what sort of quote unquote DC Black Label movies would you like to see in the DC canon of characters? What movie would you like to see that has like a lower budget, is like a character study, minimal VFX, R-rated, sort of cinema, quote unquote?
When you look at that, Batman's Rogue Gallery is still one of the best. Absolutely. It really is. So one of the best. I know we're getting them in Birds of Prey. But Black Mask, bro.
That would be a good one.
I mean, it's just the underworld of seedy crime and all that kind of stuff. I think Black Mask. Now, you could say Victor Zsasz because he's a serial killer and stuff like that. That's another one. Maybe. Now, did you ever really read the comics about Bane?
Dude. I read I remember reading from like the 90s. Like Bane would be a good one.
Dude, he's messed up. He's put into a prison because of the crimes of his father. It's some like horrible South American prison. His mother gives birth to him in the prison. He never sees the light of day. There's you can do some really crazy stuff with Bane, man.
You can make
really
it kind of almost like about like Mexican wrestling and someone who's twisted and has had like a bad upbringing, and he goes from being like a nobody to being like a cult hero and having like this sort of following. It could work. What I would
even do and I hold your thought, don't lose your thought. I think if you wanted to get more comic booky too with this DC Dark Elseworlds, you can even do Injustice. Do Injustice if you want to. But anyway, go ahead.
I would go away from, although Batman's Rogues Gallery fits perfecally into this, it just does. Like all of his villains, really, you could do something about any of them. Like, for example, I would love to see something like a Seven, but the Riddler or Zodiac.
Yeah, it's messed up. Absolutely.
But the Riddler being this sort of serial killer who's unknown and who just sends riddles to the cops, maybe Jim Gordon and his partner, and they're just trying to solve some really like dark, like messed up crimes. That will work. But I would like to think, apart from Batman, someone like Constantine. And do Constantine, but then make it like the Conjuring movies. So
you got like a horror aspect to it.
You make it like super horror. You make it low budget, low rent. You put a lot of like voodoo in it, and that's what I think Constantine would really work. I was also thinking Zatanna could work. Now, hear me out on Zatanna, okay?
Okay.
Have you ever seen Whiplash?
Yeah.
All right. So just make something about Zatanna, because her dad was also a magician, and just make it about her going through this sort of grueling process to become an illusionist, and the obsession, child abuse, that sort of thing, to becoming to becoming a fully fledged magician. And in order to put a twist in it, you can sort of like put this twist between what is magic and what is an illusion, and boom. So there are very many things that they can do if they get creative. I would really like them to step away from Batman, because I think DC is a little bit too reliant on Batman
They are. They fall back on him.
Yeah, it's almost like crack. It's almost
they fall back on him. I agree with you. I agree with you.
So I'm looking forward to what's coming up next. And as we said, we'd like to see them all. The MCU is coming out with some bangers, some exciting new things. They're bringing in new characters, and at the same time, DC, and whatever other companies are left out there can give us some smaller, character studies, something darker. And so it's a buffet, something for everyone,
Absolutely. They can all exist.
Absolutely. So now let's move on to The Matrix. Now, The Matrix is one of my favorite franchises of all time. As a matter of fact, I always tell people, to me, it's my Star Wars. It's my
There's
Star Wars.
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it has the sort of world building and storytelling to be able to house a sort of, Star Wars level franchise where you can have stories that exist out of the immediate Neo Trinity Morpheus storyline. You can have stories set in the future, stories set in the past, stories set parallel to the events. And so WB tends to agree with me. They are working on some new Matrix movies. Now, what we had heard and what everyone was excited about was that a Matrix 4 is coming, and it's going to have Keanu Reeves, which had everyone super excited.
Neo.
It's also going to have Carrie-Anne Moss, and I think it's going to have Lawrence Fishburne. I'm not sure if that has been confirmed, but it's returning, some of the original players. Now, what's really cool is that people thought that the prequel that they were talking about was shelved. But Zach Penn, who's a writer, said this on Twitter. He said, "People keep asking, so let me clarify. There are 2 different Matrix projects at WB. I wrote one set earlier in the timeline of the Matrix universe. Lana Wachowski is directing a sequel that I did not work on, but can't wait to see. Neither of them are reboots. Hashtag not a reboot." So I'm really excited. I wanted, the Matrix, story to continue. And not only am I getting a continuation, I'm getting 2. So we're getting Matrix 4, and I'm calling the prequel Matrix 0. So, Christian, what do you think about The Matrix, and what do you think about the prospect of, WB trying to make it, this sort of Star Wars-like extended universe?
Well, the world of The Matrix is this fantastic science fiction world, and when that was first released, the first Matrix, movie making techniques that they did there are still used to this day, like bullet time. Bullet time was all Matrix. That was all them. That green sheen that was over everything, and those little quick hits. To make you feel a little unsettled while you're watching the movie. They did wonderful things in The Matrix. Now, to me, 2 and 3 are not quite as good as the original Matrix. They're not bad. They're not bad.
I will fight you. I will fight you.
I believe that the Wachowski brothers kind of heard how genius they were, and then they kind of went off the deep end. I've always felt that 2 and 3 could have been combined into one movie. But the 2 and 3 still gave us, first of all, they gave us some awesome. Number 2 gave us that incredible scene where he's fighting all the Smiths. Yep. It's just it's just an incredible scene. And part 3 also gave us the scene where he goes back into the Matrix at the end and has the fight with Uber Smith.
Yep.
Yeah. So, there's so many things that went well with this series. The Animatrix was friggin' fantastic.
I have a copy of the Animatrix.
So good. And what you just said sparked something to me that I didn't have in my notes when we were talking. The Animatrix especially showed us this larger universe that the Matrix has. I think now you're an Uber fan, so you can tell me. I think in Matrix 2, did they say they destroyed Zion 7 times?
Yes. Before? So yes, Zion has been destroyed several times before. Yeah.
7 Neos. We have 7 cultures. We have 7 societies that have been built. There's so many stories that they could go for.
So many stories. I actually have the Matrix comics. Do you know that there were actually 2 Matrix graphic novels? It's like the Animatrix anthologies, different stories, and they're compiled into 2 like massive comic books. Like it's a crazy world.
I think when you made the quick analogy to Star Wars, I think that's true. You know, Rogue One became one of my personal favorite Star Wars movies, and that has nothing to do with the Skywalker saga. I mean, you get a quick glimpse of Vader at the end going crazy, but other than that, it's not Skywalker at all. And you don't need Neo and Trinity to have a great amazing story, and there's so much they can get into. So yeah, I'm more interested, I think, in Matrix Zero than I am in Matrix 4. The only thing I will say about Matrix 4, it's so weird to hear about Keanu Reeves and you got Trinity and Neo coming back. But if there's any universe that can make this work, it's the Matrix. They could do it. They could do it. Absolutely.
I echo your sentiments. Like, there's really nothing else to add. I'm really curious to see both of them. I'm happy that they're doing it because this is going to be the third time I'm saying this.
Yeah.
Variety of franchises, more franchises, not less. And people should allow all these franchises to exist. There is no reason why Disney should be the only studio that is telling stories. Disney has Star Wars, they have Marvel, which I do not want to see. As much as, there's a group of Star Wars fans who want to see Star Wars sort of obliterated or maybe somewhat wrestled from the hand of Disney. I personally would rather see Star Wars definitely exist and be whatever it is for whoever it is. See the Marvel movies exist and be whatever it is for whoever it is. And then let's also have stuff like The Matrix happening. Let's have stuff like, Transformers, Terminator as well, and the next one that we're going to talk about, which is a perfect segue, we're going to talk about Masters of the Universe, another of my favorite franchises. So Masters of the Universe is owned by Sony, the film rights. And Masters of the Universe is a world that so many people are fans of. It's one of my favorite franchises. My four favorite franchises are DC, Bond, Masters of the Universe, and Matrix in no particular order. And for years, people have been begging Sony, please just make it work. Do something. They've had many writers. They've had many directors. They've never been able to, crack the code. It's like rocket science, and they just can't figure it out. So the latest news that we have is that they're thinking of just selling whatever it is that they have to Netflix, just shipping it out to Netflix. So basically, it's going to be pretty much the same thing that they've done with Spider-Man, if you think about it. Just farm it out to someone else. So what do you think of Sony, rather than having the Masters of the Universe, in their in cinemas and distributed, traditional route to go to the Netflix streaming platform?
I got to preface whatever I'm saying here, but dude, I love He-Man and I love She-Ra.
Nice.
I love them. I mean, I'm old. Okay. I'll just throw it out there. I'm an old guy. All right. So I'm like 40. So because I'm like 40, He-Man is my childhood. It's one of my favorite things. My sister loved She-Ra. Do you remember they did that Christmas special with He-Man and She-Ra came together and all? It was like, I can't get enough of this. I was like, this is great. And my wife was, hey, do you know She-Ra's on Netflix now? I was like, no, it's not. No, it's not. And we got a reboot. Even that's good. And I was watching it recently. We got through the 2 seasons and you can knock on it if you want to because they go a little too far on the girl power. But dude, the story's good. The story's good. And everything about Hordak and all that. I'm not going to spoil anything about it, but in case anyone hasn't watched it, it's really not bad. So pick it up and check it out. If you can, go on Netflix and check out.
It has a massive following, a cult following, a very strong good following.
I think there's a little bit of good and bad here, though, with the streaming thing. The good is that, look, we are going to get a movie that's going to be made now by Netflix because the studio was willing to just give it a pass, right? So now we're finally in another world. If this was 20 years ago, we may never get this movie and it would be stuck in development hell forever. And then we never get it. Now, because of Hulu and because of Netflix and because of the different streaming services, there's a shot that we will get this. And last week on the pod, we did talk a little bit about how we may have to conform to Netflix. That's fine. I get it. But the plus is this thing was going to get trashed, and now it's not going to get trashed, and it can exist. We're getting the Kevin Smith you know, Masters of the Universe. So maybe we'll have a couple different tones here. We'll have one that's more serious. We'll have one that's more fun. The downside to this is kind of like, dude, Sony, give it a friggin' shot, man. I mean, it seems like these studios are willing to give up on something very quickly, and perception is reality. So while we may be getting a movie that's very well made, and Netflix is going to do a fantastic job with this, right or wrong, the perception will be, well, this movie was going to be a piece of junk anyway, so it's getting thrown to Netflix. True. That's not cool.
That's one of the criticisms I have of Netflix. Netflix haven't yet been able to cultivate the hype around some of their releases to make them event movies. Now they're doing a decent job with The Irishman, but that's still a prestige film. It's still sort of like an indie film, and that's for the Oscar lovers and people who like those type of films. But to get a movie working and humming in all cylinders like the way a Marvel movie or a DC movie, when it's on the big screen where you have like posters everywhere, trailers everywhere, and everybody's hyped, they're talking about it, they're all going to go out to see it. It's an event film. Netflix has not shown the ability to do that.
Nope.
They've been reluctant to do that. They're not going to spend on the marketing budget to do that. And I feel like He-Man deserves that. Transformers was able to do that, and it made billions.
Yeah,
all right?
He-Man does deserve. I agree.
He-Man deserves that kind of treatment. It deserves to be shown on the grand stage and be an event film, But on the other hand, you did raise the point that we were not going to get anything. So if I had to choose between nothing and something, I'm going to choose something because I'm a rational thinking man. So, we're going to get, He-Man on Netflix. If Sony's not able to, come to terms with whatever it is that they put together, the package they put together, then put it on Netflix. One advantage that Netflix has is that Netflix is not very much bothered with critics' reviews. I know that sounds weird because a lot of times critics' reviews drive box office returns and performance and the perception of a movie. But with Netflix movies, because they're so easy to watch, you just turn on your Netflix when you have it and you watch it, people don't pay attention to the critics' reviews, and critics themselves don't even tend to talk too much about movies that are on Netflix because they know people are not paying too much attention to their word. Like, it doesn't really matter what you see. Somebody's going to check it out, even if they're going to check it out for 10 minutes. They'll check it out. If it's not good for 10 minutes, they can turn it off, or they can come back to it, or have it play in the background. So they don't spend as much time. If the movie is not that good, you're not going to get this cavalcade of bad reviews that make people be like, oh, I'm not going to go see that. So people are probably going to give it a chance and make up their minds about it. That's the benefit of Netflix to something like He-Man. And after Sony has seen like films like Men in Black International, I watched it. It has a horrible critical rating on all the aggregate sites, and it's not worse than your average Marvel movie. To be honest, it's not worse than Spider-Man: Far From Home. It's just a fun, easygoing, cool movie, and I can see.
We got to do good cop, bad cop again because
I think we would another episode, but I can see He-Man coming out, and in whatever form it is, I can see it getting trashed because a lot of franchises are facing this dilemma. It's almost like if you're not a Disney franchise, you have a very low chance of having good critical reviews and good box office returns.
Yeah, and that unfortunately goes back to what we talked about a couple minutes ago with some of the tribalism and then some of these people courting favor.
Yeah. So Netflix seems like it's a logical way to go, and I hope that they just give us He-Man, give us Masters of the Universe, and then whatever we get from there, we'll just go forward.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it sounds like we would have the opportunity to get two different types too, because we'd get Kevin Smith and we get this.
And we get this. And also we have She-Ra that's also in the universe. So
absolutely.
Everybody eats. That's what it's about. So now let's move on to our coming soon section. All right. So let's start with a poster that we got from a certain James Bond 25 movie called No Time to Die. Why don't you start us off? How did you feel about this post? Did it get you excited about the movie? Are you intrigued? What do you think the poster is trying to say? Can you break down the depth and the layers and the things in the art of the poster?
I will say that I have no idea what the poster's trying to say. I'll say that right now. I like James Bond. Been a fan of Bond. Daniel Craig is definitely one of my favorites. I was excited when I found out that he was going to do one final one before we move on to whatever the next phase is. I will. Okay. I saw the fan backlash online, and people were like, "Really?" That was like that. You know, everybody just kind of like, "This is the poster we're getting." Cool. Yeah, this is shit. Like that's basically what I saw online.
Yeah.
I will say this much: I don't disagree with anybody that feels that way because the poster just ain't good. It's not. It's not a good poster. It looks like somebody photoshopped the font, stuck it on there. You took Daniel Craig, and you got this solo shot of him, and that's it. The only thing I'll say on the side is this: it's the first poster. It's the first one, guys. Relax. REAL. That's relax, right? What did Aaron Rodgers say? It was RELAX. Relax. It's the first one. Usually, when a Bond movie first comes, when they first start advertising it, the original poster is usually just him, kind of by himself, and then we get the more exciting posters. We get closer, and we get the "World Is Not Enough" poster and all that kind of stuff. And by the way, I did see somebody make a comparison the other day to some of the Roger Moore posters. There's no comparison. There's no comparison. The Roger Moore posters are fun, flamboyant. Yeah, very 70s, 80s.
Very 70s,
yeah. So
Star Wars ones, the Superman ones, those.
Oh God,
that era of posters was iconic.
It really was. So yeah, if you're gonna ask me what is this trying to convey, bro, I have no idea. I don't have a clue. I just don't think we should jump on it right away. I think we should give it a shot. But go ahead, what you were going to say.
All right. So you kind of cut me off at the knees, but I'm going to jump all over it. That's what I'm going to do.
That's the Exiles. I'm sorry.
That's the Exiles. That's the Exiles way. The only way. I just think it's. I look at the poster and you are right. Okay, it's the first poster. It's a teaser poster. It's just put something out there. But why even put out that poster? It's just Daniel Craig in his suit and with a gun. It's just like, hey, Daniel Craig is back. In case you didn't know, and we already know. So I don't get it. And also a little bit of a nitpick. I do not want to be too harsh, but I gotta say it. He's not looking too hot.
Yeah,
the years have not been too kind to Daniel Craig. He's looking kind of not as James Bondy, ready for action as he used to be. Now, I know in this Bond, his retirement is coming out of action, but maybe he should have laid off the beers and the burgers and he should have, maybe gone to the gym once. Just once.
We do know the guy takes care of himself. He looked good in Casino Royale and those movies, so yeah, he does take care of himself.
Yeah, he does take care of himself, but I think his face looks a bit puffy, or maybe it's just a Photoshop. It looks like he let himself go just a little bit.
He's looking old, man. It happens to the best of us. He's looking old.
It really does, and it goes back to something I've always said about this movie. I'm a huge Bond fan, but I feel like Daniel Craig should have gone. We should have just gotten a clean slate. That's me. He was a good Bond. He's been in great Bond movies, but come on, the dude is like pushing 60 and he's trying to force it. And, although I do admit that Spectre wasn't so good, so maybe I feel like they owe him a better send-off.
It was definitely a step down from the one before.
Yes,
it was definitely a step down. Yeah.
So maybe they feel, or let him go out on a high note. That means that this movie has no choice but to be absolutely mind-blowingly
better be awesome.
It better be awesome because he's hanging on too long. That athlete. Can I remember Jerry Rice when he played for like 5 different teams at the end of his career, and when he had like his braids, but he was balding, so his braids started from the back of his head.
I agree, and he still had some good years on the Raiders, and I agree. But yeah, it was just bro.
I mean, he was
maybe it's time
on the Seahawks. Like, dude, just go out when you're maybe not on top or close to the top. Don't go out when you're on the bottom and nobody wants to sign you. So that's what this poster just reminded me about. Which is like, Daniel Craig is old, and this poster says nothing. And I think that they should have put a better first foot forward for
Yeah,
a poster.
I can see that.
That's me.
Yeah,
That's
I
me.
see that.
All right. So now let's move on to a featurette, a behind-the-scenes featurette from Sam Mendes' World War One epic, 1917. This is one of the best behind-the-scenes trailers or specials that I've seen on any movie. I didn't know this before. Apparently, 1917 is a war movie. It follows, two soldiers who have to, travel through dangerous territory to send a message to deliver a message that's going to save lives. And the whole thing is going to be one take. The camera is going to be on the actors from the beginning of the film for the entire duration of the film, which I'm expecting to be, above 120 minutes. Obviously, they're going to use, tricks to splice it together, but that's really difficult. So this featurette kind of shows how, they're moving the camera. One time, two guys are carrying the camera. Then another time, someone has it over the shoulder. Then they put it on a rig that moves and pans. Then they lift it up and put it on a car, and they just move it around, following these actors through the mayhem. One take. Are you serious? Like my mind is blown. What do you think?
Insane. It is insanity. We were just talking about Sam Mendes and what he did with Bond. We also know Road to Perdition and a couple other movies that he did. He's a good filmmaker. I know he doesn't have a lot, but what he's given us is very good. History may be my favorite subject, and you have to study where you've been to find out where you're going. And, history will repeat itself if we don't learn from it. And historical dramas and these epics I love them. They're one of my favorite genres, and I love watching these period pieces. And you got the cast that this has with, I guess it's Benedict Cumberbatch, right? Colin Firth, Mark Strong. You got Andrew Scott. There's a lot of people in this movie that like heavy hitters that are in this movie. I did not watch the featurette until literally like 10 minutes before we did this pod, and I was blown away by it. I really was. The techniques that they were using, they had the cameras on the back of 4x4s and everything like that. They're running with the actors. The actors are going crazy. Stuff's blowing up next to them, and you got the director like running them and everything. This is going to be good. I don't know what else to say except it looks like it's going to be good. And I we talked a little bit before about Saving Private Ryan, and that movie blew me away. Dude, Dunkirk was so good. That was a great flick. Yeah. If this does what those did, and it does it in this way that he's talking about it, right, with the single, just as you were saying, just using the one shot, we're going to see something different. It's going to elevate that genre into something else. I'm really looking forward to this. I really am. And I didn't know as much about it until you kind of directed me to it and said, Chris, you got to take a look at this. I'm so happy you did. I'm so happy I watched the featurette. Dude, I don't know what else to say. I'm really looking forward.
You're 100% right. Now, on the flip side, I don't really like historical movies. Biopics. Not that I dislike them, but they're not my favorite. But this featurette has made me so hyped for this film. This is like now must see cinema. Like it really is. Like I'm really, really excited. And when we're talking about, behind the scenes featurettes, I'm wondering like, why don't more movies do this for their like show some cool behind the scenes stuff about how interesting and how difficult it was to make some aspect of your film or something that there's some things that trailers cannot describe.
I totally agree. I think go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, we talked about Rogue One and how much I personally like Rogue One. They decided to do a featurette trailer. And the featurette was so good. They showed what they were doing on Scarif at the end of I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Scarif at the end of the movie, and how they were going to explore worlds that hadn't been explored in the Star Wars franchise before, and how these characters were taking us to a little bit of a darker place that, the rebellion, they're kind of like terrorists. I mean, they're and they had to get their hands dirty and do things that that we never saw the rebellion do before. And I didn't think this movie was going to be like that. It was the featurette that got me into that.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was
Like,
the featurette that told me that, and I was turned on by it. I mean, not sexually, but no, I was turned on by it because it was.
if that's your
Man,
kink,
you get your kicks from Star Wars, all right, whatever. But no, all joking aside, I mean that you're right. This I was not necessarily. Not that I didn't know anything about 1917, but it wasn't on my radar. And when you said you got to watch this featurette, I'm so happy you told me. I'm so happy you did.
So I would definitely like to see more movies, do featurettes, and hopefully we can talk about them some more on the podcast. So let's move on to the next trailer. This is Pixar's upcoming animated film, and it's called Onward, and it's about this fantasy world with, all the species of fantasy creatures. You got like elves and nymphs and fairies and gnomes, and it's about a boy and his older brother, and they find this magic wand and this spell that might bring their father back, but then they can only bring half of him back, and they go on a road trip to, do the whole. And so, yeah, tell us what you think about the trailer. I just need to grab a tissue so I can, shed some tears, because Pixar does that somehow. I don't know what kind of magic voodoo they have.
They hit you in the feels every time. Every time. Dude, aren't Pixar movies just straight up fun? Aren't they just fun?
They are.
I remember the first time I saw one was Toy Story, right? So I was 15 years old when Toy Story came out, and I took my younger brother to see it. And my father, I remember when I said I was going to buy the tickets, he was like, I want to see that too. We should all go together. So we'll do like a dude's day. We'll do it to my dad and the two guys. And you're right, it was awesome. It was a fun memory, which is one of the greatest thing about movies, right? Is that we have memories and stuff. Bro, we laughed like idiots the entire time. In that theater. I mean, all the stupid toys that I forgot. Is it Andy? All the toys that Andy has in his room. I was like, I had that toy. I had the bucket of army men and all that. I had the Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head, and and I cracked up with the claw. Like that. Just I laughed at that. And Pixar movies know how to make us laugh. They know how to make us cry. They do a good job, and I'm really happy that we're getting something a little more original too. We're not just getting Toy Story, Monsters Inc., Bugs Life. Yeah. We're getting something that's a little more original, and they still got it, bro. Yeah. They still got it. They can still do it.
They do.
And Chris Pratt, I'll watch anything with Chris Pratt. I don't really care.
Awesome.
He really is. So, I really am. I think I'm being brought back to my childhood again with this movie, and I'm happy for it. So, yeah.
Cool. No, for me, I feel the same. Like Pixar, they're on it. Like you can't deny that whatever it is that they're doing, it works. And while, a lot of times we get, we go into the weeds when it comes to movies, and we talk about, all these elements of movies and themes, and, we break it down, and we really like to go deep. Pixar movies, like you can tell, like they do have themes, and they are communicating some things, but these are family, animated films, and these are films that kids should understand and the whole family should enjoy, and they do them so well. The only criticism I have about Pixar movies is that the animation tends to be quite the same across the board. It kind of has that Zootopia, Toy Story, Shrek kind of. The style of animation just seems to be the same, and I would like them to be a little bit more adventurous, like like how Leica Studio does different things from time to time. The guys that do the stop motion animation. I think that with the way they tell stories, if they could just be a little bit more adventurous on the art design, then to me, they'll be like absolutely, absolutely perfect. But I'm really looking forward to this one. The trailer made me laugh. It made me cry, made me feel emotional, made me excited. I went through the entire rainbow of emotions, and I'm looking forward to seeing the whole thing. And I'll be taking my little cousin to go see it when it comes out.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you're right. Maybe they're not quite as groundbreaking as they used to be, but they're still fantastic.
They absolutely are. Can't hate on them. So there you go. That's it for our episode of Exiles News Network. It was really cool to talk to you, Christian.
Likewise.
Do you have any last words for the people?
I have no last words except see more movies. That's
there you go. That's a good one. My last word will be stay exiled. Stay exiled. Never, ever give in. So you can find me on Twitter at LiveLoveLupe. Christian, where can they find you?
You can find me at Chart, CHART 6363. I'm the therapeutic guitarist.
Very nice. And so till the next time, see you guys later. Stay exiled.